don't see a perennial power coming out of the West per se in terms of somebody going through and going 8-1 and 11-1 on the season. I think it's going to come down to Iowa, Wisconsin. I think it's really going to come down to a head-to-head game between the two of them. I like Iowa to win that one. As we kind of look through the rest of it, Northwestern takes a little bit of a step back, but I think that Pat Fitzgerald has gotten the team into a position to where they should be able to at least be in the conversation 4 out of 5 years in the West. I got Minnesota with the Fighting Row the Boats a couple games back, and then as we were talking about Nebraska, 3-6 along with Purdue, probably not going to get it done. And then the Fighting Brett Bielema's, thanks for playing. Collect your check on the way out.
I like Steve. That. I do think it could be Iowa's turn. Iowa's had Wisconsin, Wisconsin's had Iowa's number for, years and years, it seems like. And the division has come down to that. And Iowa always seems to falter in that game, can't match the physicality. It seems like most years that Wisconsin has won those games. Northwestern seems to be up one year and down the next. And after being up last year, they might cycle back down a little bit. I think you have to take what happened with Minnesota, particularly since it's Ohio State's first game, and we're selling the idea of be careful as opposed to the fact it's going to be 44-0. I think you have to take what happened with Minnesota last year, curl it up a ball, and throw it away, because that season was doomed by COVID, I think, from the beginning. And by the end, they were actually playing some pretty good football. So I think Minnesota's probably maybe a little higher. Nebraska, again, kind of the same thing with Iowa. You just wait and you wonder and you wait and you wonder, is this the year? Is this the year? Is this the year? And, by September the 15th, already it's not the year. I mean, lose to somebody that they shouldn't lose to, or get extended to double overtime by Northern Iowa or something stupid. So, the indicators are there by September the 15th, usually, that it's not going to be their year. But, it wouldn't surprise me if they popped off 9 wins somehow by accident. I don't know. They'd have to win all their home games, and other than Ohio State, of course, and, and maybe steal 1 or 2 on the road somewhere. But they owe a lot of people too. I mean, some of these schools, Nebraska and Iowa, when you've had your nose rubbed in it, year after year after year after year, you eventually either, rise up and state your case and make a play and to take somebody else's spot, or you just sit back and you take it year after year after year after year. It's dog eat dog world in the Big Ten. And I agree with Kevin. I don't see a national championship contender out of the West per se, but I see at least 3 very respectable teams that are going to be there by the end of the year.
Like Kevin, I said the same thing last summer, that Iowa and Wisconsin are the class of the division. I'm thinking the same thing right now, that they are the class of the division, not just because of really talent. There's not a talent separation between the top 5 teams in the division. If you believe in the recruiting rankings, it's just the program, the process, the execution. They just know what they're doing. They've got the identity. They are just solid football programs that get it done every year. And to Steve's point, Wisconsin to a slightly better level than Iowa. Northwestern, I haven't taken the deep dive on personnel and so forth yet, but that would be the only exception I would take to possibly at this point, without, again, taking the deep dive that a lot of people are talking about the Wildcats cycling down, but don't put anything past Pat Fitzgerald. But I will not make the mistake that I made last year, because I talked the entire offseason that I was going to make a decision between Iowa and Wisconsin. And at the last minute, right before I made my predictions, I bought the Nebraska hype by the Big Ten media, who picked them to win the division. And it was one of the stupidest predictions I've ever made in my life. Kevin, by the way, our buddy Greg Peterson made a bold prediction last night that Nebraska is going to beat Wisconsin and Iowa. I had made the comment, it'd be great if they could pick off one of them. That'd be a step in the right direction. He said they are going to win both of those games down the stretch.
Yeah, Peterson, my buddy, the axe murderer. I just don't And I told one of the posters who I know was watching your show last night. I said, "Be sure to call Greg the Axe Murderer." I think that he just is a little too optimistic in terms of what's going to happen there. I don't see it for the Huskers this year. They certainly have a schedule that sets up to get a little bit of momentum with Illinois, Fordham, and Buffalo, and then they run into kind of a bit of a buzzsaw with at Oklahoma. Then they go to Michigan State, and we haven't gotten to the East yet, but I think that Oklahoma beats Nebraska to the point that they lose Michigan State because they haven't gotten it out of their head, and then they've got Michigan or Northwestern and Michigan, so they got a tough 4-game stretch. And I think that if they go 0 for 4 there, which I'm predicting them to do, they're pretty much drawing dead at that point.
I'd be cool with Iowa if they're the team that ends up in Indianapolis on the other sideline, just because I think Wisconsin's got that fatigue from being there and not winning. Other than the first couple, back earlier in the decade, they won the first 2, but then since then, I think it's been pretty much an over for them. And that also reflects back on my other last thought on the West. I'm a Bielema believer. I mean, a guy that won several Big Ten championships, in his previous life as the Wisconsin coach, following that Barry Alvarez blueprint, which was offensive line, running backs, and great defense, was a pretty good way to win football games in the Big Ten, particularly when the weather's bad. So to my way of thinking, and I see Kevin made a comment in our internal chat about Bielema, but to my way of thinking, I think, if he can keep some of the best players in Illinois at home, he's got a chance to build something there. That's a big if, because Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa are all coming in there to take Indiana, are all coming in there to take the best players. And just one last thought on Iowa, I think they'd travel well if their team got to Indianapolis. I know they were there once before and lost to Penn State, I think in 2016 as an undefeated team, I believe Iowa may have been. Yeah, I'm interested to see, an Ohio State-Iowa championship game would be something different, and it'd be a packed house, that's for sure, there at Lucas Oil.
Quick follow-up before we get to the East. Illinois can win the state of Illinois in recruiting, and it still won't matter because I think with recruiting, there's the state of Illinois, and then there's about a 3-county area around Chicago, and I don't think that Illinois is ever going to win around Chicago is going to be the issue. So you can go and get the guy from Champaign. You can go and get the guy from Springfield. You can go and get the guy from the farms or whatever. But I don't think that they're ever really going to be competitive within Cook County, DuPage County, that area. And I think ultimately that's going to be the thing. That's the thing that's been keeping Illinois from being able to advance, in my opinion.